Had such a lousy day, I forgot the good news. It's Fat Tuesday. Mardi Gras has begun. We're starting to move into the Lenten season. I know a lot of people are excited about these things, so I wish you well with it. I hope you make the most of it. All right, now it's time for us to make the most of our coverage of the Alec Murdaugh murder trial. His only surviving son, Buster, made a moment for the jury today. Remember, the defense is now making a case in chief. Don't have to, but feel that they need to. What did Buster do? He described his dad's demeanor after the double murder of wife Maggie and son Paul. What did he say? How did it hit? What will it mean to the jury? We got all sides covered, but let's start with the moment.
Demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
Could he speak?
Not really.
Was he crying?
Yes, sir.
Son knows his father. Heartbroken dad, that's what you'd expect. Or heartless thief that the prosecution outlined before this case. Let's bring in the host of the Cup of Justice podcast, Eric Bland, high-profile trial attorney Mark Garrigus, and one of the top jury consultants who handled the O.J. Simpson and Casey Anthony cases, Richard Gabriel. It's good to see you, Richard. I'm going to use you as the judge here. Bland, I'll start with you. Why did this moment why will this moment, I'm going to start with Garrigus. Why will this moment matter to the jury?
Well, like all cases, jurors look to the victims and take a cue from victims. It's one of the reasons why the whole victims' rights movement came about. It's one of the reasons why victims traditionally sit behind the prosecution. It's right out of their playbook. And look what happened. Here, in this case, the only survivor in that family is here, sitting behind his dad, the accused for this entire trial, and gets up there, testifies, and boy, if you are on Twitter for more than 30 seconds, you would have seen a lot of broken hearts, because all of the cheerleaders for the prosecution didn't know what to make of this, didn't understand the prosecution's tact that they took on this. And frankly, I'd actually, for once, I will support the prosecution. The idea that you're going to be vicious with this young witness, to me, is ludicrous. There was nothing else they could do. He was compelling and, I think, effective. And by the way, we don't know because we're not in the courtroom looking at those jurors, but it's hard to believe that anybody would listen to this and not think that this son knows his father.
Eric Bland, can you mitigate that argument?
Yes, I can, and I was disappointed about the prosecution not going into the fact that he didn't know anything about what happened on the night of the murder from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. They could have asked him very gently, without getting in his face and being abusive, but ask him, did you know that your father was at the kennels? Did he tell you otherwise? When did you learn that there was a Snapchat video at 7:45? Did your father ever tell you he changed his clothes? Did your father, what did you think when it came out that your father stole $3.45 million from the woman you loved, Gloria Satterfield? Just in a very benign way, but to make it seem like that for this jury that he really didn't know his father, that 10%. Yes, Mark's totally correct. He is a victim, and they put him on because they wanted to show the jury that he still supports his father. However, they could have pointed out very strongly that he didn't know where Paul lived at the time of Paul's death. He didn't know that Paul had a third blackout gun, and he didn't know the color of Paul's shotgun. So there's a way to cross-examine him, and Mark knows that you can do it in a polite kind of way. You don't have to abuse him. You don't have to get in his face. But the state, I think, lost an opportunity, and Buster is a victim. I'm not saying that he's not. But the defense's witnesses are underwhelming. They had a doctor who should be a doctor on Green Acres, the coroner, on Friday, that was a joke, who talked about testing under armpits. And their catch-all expert this afternoon, he could play all 5 positions on an offensive line. He wasn't credentialed at all, and I think Mark would agree that they took it a little too far with his opinions.
All right, let's do it this way, though. Richard, I want to bring you in to kind of suss this out. We'll start with Eric's last point first, because I think it's easier to dispense with. Tell me if my experience with juries is wrong. Pedigrees are for lawyers. Qualifying experts are for lawyers. The juries sit back and listen and decide whether or not something makes sense. They don't get blown away from resumes that they often don't understand. First of all, how important is the expertise of the expert versus what comes out of their pie hole?
The expertise of an expert really is in making the jury the expert. That's where credibility really lies. For the most part, jurors want to make sense of it, as you said. They want to understand what are the issues being looked at, how did you look at it, what was the process that you went through. The best expert is the one that actually makes the jury expert and makes them feel like they understand the science behind it.
Now, the impact of the remaining son saying, my daddy was heartbroken. It only takes one juror to hang. What does an emotional moment like that play to, and what is the calculus that you've seen play out in jury boxes?
Well, the challenge in any circumstantial case, but quite frankly in most cases, is character is king. For the most part, jurors are going to look at Alex Murdaugh and go, who is this man? Is he the demon that the prosecution says he is? Is he the bereaved husband and father that is mourning over his family? And they're trying to fill in the blanks there. Nature hates a vacuum. So do jurors. They want to know who this man is. And so to the extent that Buster gets up there and gives a much fuller picture of who this man is going to be important to them. Now, that being said, there's also a little bit of a credibility knock. They know that he's their only remaining family member. Of course he's going to support his father. So there's a little bit of a grain of salt that jurors are going to take with Buster's testimony anyway.
All right, let's move on to Idaho real quick. I have never been a big fan of the idea that change of venue makes a huge difference in terms of jury pool if there's a lot of notoriety attached to a case. In Idaho, Kohberger, the accused attorney, is saying, I got to move this 300 miles away so I can get a fair trial. You going to find people who have less opinions about it 300 miles away in Idaho?
No, of course not. I mean, the truth is, with social media these days and the pervasive, devices that we all have, everybody knows everything about the case. What is important in change of venue is, in a case like this where you're in a smaller town, smaller venue, is who knows the victims, who knows Kohberger, how affiliated are the jurors going to be with the people here in the town. And moving it does tend to remove that and tends to make it a little bit more distant, which can create objectivity and some impartiality. That being said, college towns are a little more liberal and a little more suspect and a little more forgiving in terms of defendants' rights and willing to give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of reasonable doubt.
Garrigus, would you move it?
This is a tough question. I mean, I famously moved for a change of venue in Scott Peterson case, and I think that was a wrong move, and I'll tell you why. I, at the time, thought I needed to get out of Modesto or Stanislaus County. Be careful what you wish for, because I actually got changed to San Mateo, which was a markedly worse county to be in, much more conservative than Stanislaus was. I was actually in that case looking for Orange County. I wanted a constituency, adulterous golfers, but I didn't get that, and so a lot of times you can get a place that is not what you want. And I would, to echo what Richard said, the interesting thing about jury selection, most judges do not want to grant a change of venue until they do jury selection, because the common thought is you can weed it out, I actually think that the way to solve the problem is sequestration of the jury, that once you select the jury and you're comfortable with what you have, you take them out of their environment where they're going home each night and listening to people like us yabber on TV, and instead just focus on what's in the courtroom.
It's hard these days, though, with telephones, and as you know, there's always a risk that you piss off the jury by taking them away from their lives. All right, I'm out of time. Fellas, I'll give you a pass on that anyway, Bland, because we'll stick with you in South Carolina. Thank you very much, Eric Bland. As always, Mark Garagos, pleasure. And I have to tell you, Richard, We've been trying to get you on for a long time. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for your expertise. I look forward to applying it again. All right, up next, officials are drinking.